free places now, though, coming up on 4 minutes past 6. Is the government's 30 hours of childcare a week working for you? Now, a survey of childcare providers in England suggests that only 35% of childcare providers are delivering 30 hours places, which they're supposed to do, completely free. They asked nurseries, preschools and childminders about their experience, and we'd love to hear yours this morning. 85058 or social media at BBC 5 Live. Neil Leitch is Chief Executive of the Preschool Learning Alliance and joins us now. Morning to you.
Good morning.
OK, you've had a chance to look through the results. What are the standout findings to you?
Well, I have to say nothing really stands out because we predicted this at the outset. I mean, they are the first results of actual experiences are starting to come through. But it's inevitable if you grossly underfund a system that was already underfunded for 15 free hours and then you top it up to 30 hours, that you're just going to exacerbate the problem. And that's exactly what's happened. So what we found is basically just over a third of providers are at the moment, and I say at the moment, providing these places without additional charges. And the remainder are either refusing to basically provide them free because they can't afford to do that. So that leaves us with, frankly, a big hole where parents are expecting to come in, get this free offer, and it's not available.
So if you come along saying, I'm here with my kid and I want my 30 hours free, and the nursery says, well, it's free with conditions attached, essentially, because it sounds to me that they're saying this is kind of, they're treating it as subsidised childcare because they can't afford to provide it completely free. Are they allowed to do that?
Well, they are actually. I mean, it's interesting. It is subsidised childcare. There is no such thing as free childcare. And as I said, when the 15 hours, and the 15 hours still exists for every 3 and 4 year old, of free childcare came out, that was underfunded. So government's known about this all the way along. It's interesting, back in July of last year, that government actually changed its regulations and actually said that parents can expect to pay extras. Of course, they didn't make a big announcement about it, but that's what they said in the guidance, and that's what providers are having to do. And the other reality is that it's now become a stretched offer. So in fact, if you think you'll be able to walk into a setting and get your 30 hours per week, it's more like free. It's more likely to be 22 hours because it's stretched across the year. So it was never 30 hours for every week of the year. It's for 38 weeks of the year.
OK, so when the nursery's open, is that what you're saying?
Well, you know, it's beyond term time is what I'm saying.
Oh, OK. I mean, for their part, the government, if they said you could expect to pay extras, could we not argue then that we always knew this was on the cards?
No, but they didn't say that. They said it after the event. What you have to remember is when Labour, for example, were offering 25 hours of free childcare just before the election, that was heavily criticised by the then minister, who said, do you know how much that would cost? At least £1.5 billion. No mention of basically this government being able to offer more and more hours. Just a few weeks before the election, topped it up by another 30%, so moved from 25 hours to 30, and invested £1 billion, they claim, although we dispute that, frankly. But on my calculation, if you argue that, and they did, that Labour, it would cost £1.5 billion, it means that effectively the cost of delivering 30 hours, in their own reckoning, is £2.25 billion. But they've invested less than that, only 40% roughly of what it's going to take to cover the cost.
OK, what are nurseries telling you then?
Well, nurseries are telling us that basically, if this carries on, that they will refuse to actually offer the additional hours, or they will have to bring in more and more charges. And those charges won't just be to those parents who are getting the 30 hours. Those charges will have to relate to those parents who are having to take or do not qualify for the 30 hours or free entitlement. So actually all we're doing is shifting the burden. Those parents that were told and promised at the outset that they would get these free hours are being misled.
Do you think that's already happening, or are they allowed to do that? Are they allowed to put the charges onto the parents who aren't entitled? Are they already picking up the bill, do you think?
Already having to do it. And you know, the reality is you don't have to be an accountant to work out if you don't have enough money coming in one particular area. If you're going to stay afloat, you basically have to make it up somewhere else. And that's what's going to happen.
Why can't they just say we're not offering it? We're not doing that here.
Well, it's not that easy because, of course, at the moment, there's a fear factor there that if you don't offer it, there's always somebody going to try it and, we're treading water. The reality is the sector is not in a good place. You've got one in 5 providers saying that we're not sure we're going to be here next year. The DFE, the Department for Education's own figures show that this is not a healthy sector. We've had 10,000 childminders leave the sector. We have a major recruitment problem. That doesn't tell me this is buoyant and financially viable across the whole, if you like, country.
And so with nurseries, when they say they're going to allow these places, give us an idea of how much that costs, how much funding they get then per child, per hour, for example?
Well, it varies. It varies across the country. But on average, let's say it's about £4.15 that they get. And many providers will tell you that it costs them around £5.20, even beyond that, to actually provide these hours. So again, if there's a shortfall, and there was a shortfall in the 15 hours, and the only way in which that worked was those parents who took additional hours basically made up the difference. Now, if, of course, you add more and more free hours, you remove the ability to cross-subsidise, and that's exactly what's happening. So there's a massive shortfall, at least 20%, I would suggest.
Do you think if they just change the language and says this is subsidised childcare as opposed to free, and that would be their get out of jail card, and they wouldn't need to provide the extra funding because maybe the rest of us would go, it's a nice idea and the government's doing its best, but it doesn't have a bottomless pit of money?
That's what they should do. They should actually say this is not free, it's subsidised. But the reality is every political party on their agenda, on their manifestos, is all about outdoing each other in terms of the free entitlement. So it's very difficult to see from a very practical perspective that there's going to be a change of heart. They offered parents free childcare to now say, well, we'll give you a subsidy, of course, is a big political move.
It would be, wouldn't it? And you can understand why they might have done that. But you're saying that was a bit of a manifesto bribe?
Well, it was.
Did you go that far?
They hadn't worked out, no computations, no calculations, just how can we get votes? And now we providers, nursery providers and childminders are left to try and work out how we can basically make this work. And we're tired of it. Year after year, this happens.
So do you want them to change the language or find the money? What's your preferred option?
Well, the preferred option from providers, and I can tell you that we did another survey, 91% of providers basically want top-ups dropped, but they can't do it without adequate funding. So providers would like adequate money in the system, and therefore they wouldn't have to charge these extras. That would be the perfect solution.
Neil.
But if they can't do it, sorry, just to say, if government is refusing to do that, then they need to come clean, be honest, and say it is a subsidy.
Neil Leitch, Chief Executive of the Preschool Learning Alliance. Thank you. A Department for Education spokesperson has given us this statement. We are investing a record amount, around £6 billion every year by 2020 in childcare, and have doubled the free childcare available to working parents to 30 hours a week, saving them up to £5,000 a year per child. Providers can choose whether to offer 30 hours and what pattern of days and hours they offer parents. We have always been clear that government funding is not intended to cover the cost of meals or additional services. However, whilst providers can charge parents for additional extras, this cannot be a condition of the child's place. Love your views this morning. You're going to be hearing from one woman who came up against this and ended up paying or having to pay around about an extra £350 a month, even though she had this offer and her child was in nursery of the 30 hours free a week. What is your experience? 85058 at BBC 5 Live. Or maybe you think if you're a parent who doesn't qualify for this, you're happy to pick up the slack just to keep your nursery open. If there's other people who need that subsidy and you're not one of them that does, maybe you're happy to pick up the extra bill. Or do you think the government really needs to come clean and say, you know what, this is a subsidy, it isn't free. So people are prepared to pay a little bit. Love your views on this one. 85058 at BBC 5 Live on social media.